Thank you, Mr. President. Keystone has been described kind of two ways down here, as an energy bill and as a jobs bill. Economic development, offering economic opportunity. I don't think there could be amendment that's offered that would fit both slots of this description of the Keystone bill than the amendment that I'm proposing, Amendment 133. This is a bipartisan proposal that's always been supported by both sides of the aisle and quite honestly has tremendous support across the country from the American people. When you look at the wind energy, and what the amendment does quite simply is it provides that it is a sense of the Senate that we should extend the production tax credits for the next 5 years to give certainty to alternative energy companies, particularly to wind energy companies. And it would basically lay down the marker that this is an important part of our energy future, and it's an important part of our jobs future. But importantly, as we have watched the ups and downs of our tax policy or lack thereof in the United States Senate and the United States Congress, we've seen short-term extensions, or as we call them, extenders being passed in the last moments of Congress, not giving the certainty that we need to provide the incentives that are included in those extenders. This sense of the Senate, to the extent that it becomes legislation, would in fact, for the first time, give us an opportunity to provide certainty with a glide path out, which everyone understands. Eventually, this is an industry that's going to have to stand alone. But let me talk about the importance of the wind energy industry, not just from the economic, or not just from the energy standpoint, but from the job standpoint. Today, the wind energy industry sustains approximately 73,000 jobs and directs over $17.3 billion a year in private investment to the U.S. economy, including thousands of well-paid wind manufacturing jobs at over 500 factories in 43 states that supply the United States industry. The United States currently has over 60,000 megawatts of installed capacity, and according to the American Wind Energy Association and USDA's Energy Information Administration, the United States produces over 167 billion kilowatts of wind power last year alone. So if my colleagues on both sides of the aisle are serious about this being a jobs bill, serious about this being an energy bill, then you will want to vote in favor of this amendment. Wind energy and the continued build-out of additional capacity in this country is an absolute critical piece of the above-all energy policy that every person in this building and every person, when you talk about what their energy policy is, they will say all of the above. That's got to have meaning, and it's got to include this important and critical infrastructure, this important and critical tax credit for wind energy. So the other benefit of this amendment is, as you have heard, we have 43 states involved in the manufacture or somehow production of equipment in this industry, but over 1,000 utility-scale wind projects, which represent over 62,000 megawatts, and over 46 wind turbines are installed across 39 United States states and Puerto Rico. There is also more than 500 wind manufacturing facilities spread across those 43 states. Well, I'm a little biased because we in North Dakota like to say we're the Saudi Arabia of wind. And wind is a critical part of, in fact, 15% of our capacity. We think that we could do a lot more. But let me tell you the economic impact just in my state. And a lot of you know the great renaissance, energy renaissance that's going on in America that involves the development of fossil fuels, North Dakota being the second largest oil and gas producer with the shale development. But what you don't know is North Dakota truly represents all of the above. And I want to talk about what we do in wind before I close out here. We have almost 1,600 megawatts of wind capacity installed and another 740 megawatts under construction. The industry has invested over $3.4 billion in my state with annual lease payments, and these are to farmers who are grateful for that additional revenue as those towers go up on their property, over $5 million of lease payments back to farmers. I've talked to farmers all over across North Dakota, proud that they're part of that part of the energy renaissance in our state, and grateful for the additional revenue. We have 2 educational institutions in our state who have wind energy training centers and do tremendous job training the workforce for additional wind energy. The wind energy industry supports close to 3,000 jobs in North Dakota. In a state of around 700,000 people, that's a significant factor. And in 213, wind energy was 15%. And so these are numbers, and I have to with a grin, remark on the presiding officer's grin when I said North Dakota is the Saudi Arabia, because I think he's thinking Colorado might be the Saudi Arabia of wind. And I know he's a great supporter of wind energy as well. But when we do these stops and starts, when we don't give a constant and predictable policy, we're living hand to mouth, and maybe we're making some decisions to deploy resources in a way that meets with congressional schedule and doesn't meet with a business-like or orderly introduction and continuing development of this industry. And so I believe that there's, if you're looking for a germane amendment, if you're looking for an amendment that addresses both jobs and wind, jobs and energy, this is a perfect amendment, and I yield the floor.